your potential buyers that you had in order to have a shot at achieving export sales. This failed for reasons which are pretty self-evident. It's Swiss, therefore it's going to be very well made, very well engineered, and unfortunately rather expensive. It interests me because there are characteristics on this firearm that we've seen in previous firearms manufactured just before and during the Second World War, and what they've tried to do is rip off all the good little gimmicky ideas and put them in one package to try and persuade people that they should spend money on a new submachine gun rather than go and buy a bulk purchase of surplus ACMGs on the open market. When I first saw it, the butt, which is a skeletonized butt, reminded me very much, to my eye, it looks very much like the butt you would have seen on the Australian Owen gun. It's slightly angled, skeletonized, and the Swiss have elected to use a reasonably complicated little retaining mechanism which will allow the butt to fold away. Now, immediately that makes it more attractive for use for airborne forces and for people operating out of vehicles, armoured personnel carriers, etc. The butt gets locked back into place so it doesn't fold away on you. It is, again, overall the barrel length is longer than your standard ACMG. It has a ventilated barrel jacket that when I saw it I thought immediately of the Finnish Sumi submachine gun. It has a muzzle brake that's been machined into the end of the muzzle, and that is very reminiscent of the Italian Beretta submachine gun, one of the best submachine guns ever produced. They have totally ripped off the bayonet, which is again unusual in an SMG, but they've decided to fit one, and it's pretty much a direct rip-off of the French Maz rifle bayonet, and that can be deployed or stowed conveniently, so you're not having to shag around with scabbards and things. The sights itself are graduated to 300 metres. It looks very much like a rifle sight. It's quite a fine sight picture for an SMG, and adjustable sights are something that are making an appearance again as opposed to the fixed sights that we saw in the mass-produced firearms. But the real difference is that this is one of the very first submachine guns to fire from a closed bolt. And I'll bring it forward now and just show you the mechanism. This is what interested me the most. As you can see also from here, just the quality of the fit and finish. Very, very well made, very good quality metal, and beautifully engineered. If we cock the weapon, and I then operate the trigger, you might be able to see the bolt moving forward. Now the bolt is in two parts. Cock the weapon, working parts go forward, which is firing from a closed bolt. Most SMGs of the time fired from an open bolt. When you cocked it, the working parts would be retained to the rear. The first half of the bolt chambers the round and sits comfortably, and the second half of the bolt is retained back here, and when I operate the trigger you'll see that being slammed forward with this spring. On the inside you'll not be able to see it, but to take my word for it, there's something that looks a hell of a lot like the Volmar device that you would have found in the MP38 and MP40. Sheet metal telescopic tube retaining a spring, and that is the actual recoil spring itself. So firing from a closed bolt makes it a little bit more accurate. Longer barrel gives a higher muzzle velocity, again enhancing accuracy and range. However, I'm a little bit curious as to how they thought that having that second part, basically a striker flying forward, that to me makes it, in terms of accuracy, pretty much the same, gives you the same issues as with a firing from an open bolt. You have a weight moving forward just a nanosecond prior to the firing cycle, and that's going to upset your aim slightly. But anyway, again, a little bit safer, marginally more accurate than a submachine gun that fires from the open bolt. We have a selector switch for single shot or automatic, and magazine release along the side here. Again, just a little bit more complicated than the traditional plunger release for the magazine. So overall, it's an interesting amalgam of a whole series of characteristics that I guess the designers thought would appeal to a buyer. There is no magazine for this submachine gun. I haven't found one yet. I was told and I read that it would accept the MP40 magazine, but it doesn't. So anyone that knows where I can find a magazine, I'd be grateful to hear from you. So this, the ReximFavor 5000 manufactured, an example of the designers taking the high road, trying to bring a quality product to market with enhanced performance over the bog standard World War II issue ACMGs, one that would have a bit more durability, would last longer because it's made of quality material, and perhaps they had in mind that they might get sales with either special forces type units or perhaps police forces. Didn't work, sadly. It did see service in a remachined format with the Turkish Army in limited numbers in the 1960s, and apparently it's still in service with some of their reserve units. The other post-war path which people elected to go down was with things like this Danish Madsen ACMG. This one has a dirty grey silencer on it. Ordinarily it will just have a short barrel. This is the exact opposite route that the Rexim people took. It is about as cheap and nasty as you can get. It has a very simple aluminium body. It's essentially an aluminium box which hinges open, so you don't have to strip it at all. You just basically open the side of it and you will find a very simple bolt, a spring mechanism, trigger mechanism, and that's about it. Very, very cheap to produce, reasonably reliable, fixed sights. It makes no pretense at being a rifle, carbine or LSW. It's simply a point and squirt. So that's the other route that designers went down. The Madsen achieved export sales, a hell of a lot more successful than our Rexim company. Another, just for illustrative purposes, same time I bought the Rexim, I picked up this, which is a 9mm. It's a Swedish Carl Gustav design, the Swedish K, but this one's manufactured under license in Egypt. It's called the Port Said. And here you have your bog standard SMG. Nothing flash, slightly better finish than you would have found on things like the Steen gun. Better sights. Again, it has a collapsible stock, but overall it's a simple blowback, firing from an open bolt SMG. No pretense at being anything other than a spray and pray type firearm. And I guess the other thing that the Rexim people had running against their prospects of success was that the whole concept of the submachine gun as a useful weapon was on its way out by the end of World War II. By the 1950s, the SMG is being displaced by the battle rifle and of course the assault rifle. The AK-47 is just starting to make an appearance. So the SMG as a family of weapons is rapidly getting to that point of obsolescence. Hence that together with cost is the thing that spelt the death knell for this type of high-end submachine gun. And the other things that were happening at the time, and I'll get one eventually, in the 1950s we see the emergence of the Guzzi, which has a wraparound bolt, shorter, handier weapon. So again, all these things are just designers going down slightly different paths, some of them dead ends and some of them that evolved. They went on to achieve commercial success. And that's about it. I'm in my new office. I've moved my desk out of the man cave. Since I spoke to you the last video I put up, I've got about another 20 World War II firearms, and the man cave is now bulging, so it's just being used as an armoury. I've got my office here now, and some stage next year we will do some major construction downstairs to make a really large piss-off man cave office combination. But in the meantime, from time to time I'll just stick up little videos when I get exotic, interesting things like this to show you. Otherwise, hope you're all well, and I'll catch up with you later.